Hello, and welcome to the Specialty Matcha Podcast. My name is Ryan. This is my co-host Zongjun, who also goes by Sam.
Hello, hello.
And we're the co-founders of Senko Matcha Products.
Yeah, we launched this podcast to discuss our learning journey in matcha, share startup stories, and interview experts. And today we have our old friend Pa from Tea Nursery joining us again. Welcome back, Pa.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks so much for coming back on. For any of our new listeners that didn't listen to your past interview episode, would love if you could sort of reintroduce yourself and where you're based and what your background is.
Yeah, so my name is Pau. I'm born in Catalonia in Spain. I work now in Wazuka, in a tea farm in there. So I'm based in Kyoto, south of Kyoto region. Probably, tea-wise, you probably have heard of Uji mostly, but Wazuka is a little bit more south, close to Nara. And my background is from coffee roasting. Many years later, I kind of like made the transition to the other side in a way. And then just before transitioning to the tea side of things professionally, I also started a blog about tea. I wanted to learn more, and I just collect a lot of random notes and read a lot of scientific papers and just kept all the notes for myself. And at some point, I just wanted to start publishing part of it. So that's more or less like the broad strokes of my work in a way, in tea at least.
Random notes, it's really an understatement. It's
Yes.
such a digital gold mine. For anyone that's interested in like super in-depth like knowledge about tea cultivars or tea farming techniques, definitely go check out Tea Nursery. It's
Yeah. And
such a wonderful place.
it's also the perfect starting place for a rabbit hole research journey because you do such a good job with the references. So like it's
Thank you. That is something is very important to me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like yeah, this is like that. I was like, okay, where did you take the info?
Yeah, really.
But unfortunately, is also like I need to do a better job because there is already like some articles where like 1, 2, 3 links they just die, and it's like maybe they change the URL, or if it's a reference from a paper, of course it's always there with a DOI link. But sometimes like a blog from a farmer just goes down and then the link just disappears. So it's a little bit complicated, but I do my best for references. Is actually that's how I start the articles in a way. Just bunch of references and then start like putting it together a little bit. I think
Cool.
it's very important to just like fully understand it.
Oh, yeah. And to double check. I mean, that's the worst part about learning anything about tea. Is like you kind of have to take someone's word for it at some point, and then like you have to like reconfirm. Because even when we've talked to like some farmers, both in Japan but in other countries as well, tea farmers, you realize that some people have very strong opinions, and you're like taking it all in, like yeah, 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 and then like you go and talk to someone else, and like they have a very different story. And you kind of
Yeah.
have to do your own references to figure out what's true.
Yeah, I agree. That is actually like a very fun part of like the writing, because sometimes I have the opportunity to ask some people, and some of those people actually researchers, and it's like I have this very specific question. If you have the time and you would like to answer, like here it is. They are like just like the most opinionated answer. It's like, oh, I didn't expect this from this person. And then you read his paper and you read his email, and it's like two very different things. And it's like, oh, this is the opinion of this person, and this is actually what the data shows. It's like sometimes very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, when I meet new tea people, that's like the quickest way I can categorize them at how long they've been learning about tea. Because sometimes, especially for new entrants, they learn so much more about tea than the average person that they start to really believe that they're an expert, and they talk in absolutes. And then people who've been studying tea for a lot longer and have kind of like reality over time has caught up with them, realizing that like you have to constantly revise your knowledge and frameworks. Like they talk in a very different way. And
Yeah.
we kind of
When
remove.
when you notice that they use like a lot of hedging language, like very uncertain and like shakes their heads all the time, like you're talking to a more experienced tea people.
You just get shown the door enough times, realizing, or like completely embarrassed by someone that knows way more than you enough times, and then then you realize that there's so much more context than anyone could ever learn in a lifetime for this stuff.
I think so. Especially as I read more, and especially being more in the field, like this is like my second full season in a way. Like you understand less of the specific, but you understand more about the context. And I think sometimes we kind of start from the rabbit hole, which I absolutely love. But it's like, oh, why are we actually doing this? Like, this is done by this because then when you do this, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and that's how you did it in the old times. I see. So the context is very important, and I think I'm understanding like more and more every month, every season that we go. It's like the small details, but they are like all like interweaved in a very, very, very deep way. I think that's very interesting.
That's super interesting.
So, how was the 2025 spring harvest season this year in Wazuka? We heard that quality is super good in Wuji this time. We heard the production is slightly lower, but the quality is super high. So, is that the same case also in your region, Pa? And did you learn anything new compared to last year?
I would say so. Last year we started harvesting in the farm where I work, of course, like the 23rd of April. And this year we actually harvested on Hachiyu Hachiya, so the 1st of May, which was super cool because it's like super great and very important, significant date.
It's
Yeah.
the
But
88th
2 years
day
ago,
after or something.
Hachiyu Hachiya is the 88th night after spring. So that's like after the beginning of spring, 88 nights, and that's when you start the harvest. So it's usually the 1st or 2nd of May. It's just like, I don't know, in Chinese tea would be like the Qingming. It's like that point in time where it's either pre-Qingming or post-Qingming. So it's like kind of like that style. Yeah. And of course, in Kyoto Prefecture, it's kind of like it hovers around that area. In the south, they started much earlier than us. But 2 years ago, it was very hot. So actually, they started like the 15th or 16th of April. So 2 weeks before. Extremely hot. This year, slightly later than last year. But also, it was like a very cold winter, a slightly longer cold winter. And then it just rained a lot. The weather never really picked up temperature-wise. I think that's where part of the increase in quality comes from. So in Wazuka, I think that at least at the beginning of the harvest, the quality was like very, very good. The teas I could try, super great. But then during harvest, we got like a lot of rainy days, like 1 day and a half rain, then you have to stop, then you are 1 day growth late because the plant will not really grow that much when it's raining. But then after the rain, it just like accelerates. So the last week of harvest, it was like against the clock in a way. Like you were like maybe a few fields like 1 or 2 days later that what could have been optimum, at least visually wise. Yeah. So I was talking with one of our farmers, and a couple of them were like, "Yeah, the stems have grown not too long or anything like that, but you can feel that they are slightly harder than yesterday or like 2 days ago. But it was raining, so we could not do anything. So that was a very, very interesting thing to see, because I usually I just look at the leaves and it's like, yeah, they look good. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. They were like, no, but if you take the stem, count 3 leaves, this is more or less where we want to cut, and you can feel how flexible they are. Like, oh yeah, it actually has changed.
Oh, interesting.
That was very interesting. And then there was one section of the billet that had like a little bit of frost damage. Nothing too bad, but we got in the afternoon, there is this alarm that sounds when there is frost expected during the night. Every couple of days you will hear it as like, frost is coming tonight. Like, we hope it's nothing gonna happen, because it was like 2 days before harvest or something like that. It's like this the critical point. There was just a little bit of damage in a few areas, but that's it. So that was good.
Would you guys like go turn on the fan and
They turn on automatically.
they turn on automatically?
Yeah, I mean, you put them to turn on automatically, or just ignore, even if it's like below certain temperature. You just turn them off. And you can also, they have like control panels, like there's like a thermometer, like only if it's below 5 degrees or if it's below 4 degrees or something like that. So you have a little bit of control at least. And it was very funny. It was very funny because you could follow some of Wazuka farmers in Instagram, and they're actually like taking pictures of their control panel for the fan. They were like, yeah, in this one we are turning it on, and in this one maybe off because it's a little bit more like shaded, so maybe it doesn't need the cold air and style. Like, that's the content I want to see. Yeah, perfect.
Interesting.
Well-tuned algorithm.
Yeah, it was very funny. It was just like a metal box with like a knob that is like 1 until 10 or something like that. They're just like the farmers are just taking pictures of that. It's super funny. I find it super funny. It's very
Interesting.
wholesome.
How does that system work? I would think that having like air blown at tea leaves when it's cool is going to cool them off more.
You're getting rid of moisture, right? Like,
Well, you're moving air. Like if you take a river, for example, and it's like super cold in winter, like as long as the river flows, it will never fully freeze, or it's going to be very difficult for it to freeze. Maybe on the sides, you will have like a lot of ice, but the center part of it, the water will flow, right? So it's the same, but with air. Like as long as the air is moving, the cold air will tend to sink. So the fans are like scraping that cold air and preventing it from settling and creating ice. Sometimes also like those fans are like, I don't know, maybe 5 meters tall, 6 meters tall. So the air might be slightly hotter there. So they just
Okay.
moving the air and just raising the temperature maybe half a degree is enough to move the air away, move the humidity away. If we have like a lot of moisture in the ambient, it just like keeps it a little bit like moving. So it will still be maybe cold damage, but not like ice damage in a way.
interesting.
But sometimes in certain parts of the mountain, if you know that the wind currents above the mountain are cold, and you just turn on the fans, then you're injecting super cold air on top of the plant. So that's when you just turn them off. So there is some sections where like we know that how the wind comes, like especially if you are at the top of a hill, it's just gonna be cold. But if you know that it's like a very windy area, you might just check day by day, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be frost, but no wind. We're okay. It's gonna be frost, but it's also gonna be windy. Maybe let's just cross our fingers. Some farmers they can even use like the roofs for shading. You can use that as a frost prevention technique. Like I mean, that's how they discovered that the shading improved flavor many years ago. And of course, they didn't understand the chemical reasons, but
Yeah,
it's
the
it's
Tana originally was for anti-frost.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of the same idea, but just like with wind in a way.
Very cool.
It's pretty sophisticated. I've never seen like fans like being used in farming like that. Like I think in vineyards sometimes they just like literally put like buckets with wood on fire just to warm up the field.
Yeah, I've seen that. Those like mountain candle, like that
Yeah,
looks super
it's actually
cool.
very pretty. It's like I know why you guys are doing it, and I hope everything is gonna be okay. But it looks very pretty. Yeah.
Must be so much work, like
Yeah.
putting those all out.
I've actually heard of, a very cold winter, and like some very low temperature climate is very good for, farming and, certain crops because it kind of killed all the insects and insect larvae
Hmm.
in the soil. So is that the same case for tea too? Or have you noticed a difference?
For insects above ground, I don't know. I think if you have problems with like nematodes and stuff, it's probably beneficial. But certain cultivars don't tolerate cold weather that well. Midori is extremely weak against, extremely. It's like very weak against cold weather,
Mm.
so it doesn't really like it too much. Like we have one field with Samidore, and in winter I'm always like checking to see like, oh yeah, actually you can just see the leaves just like peel away in a way
Oh, wow.
with cold weather. But in the south, like in Yame, for example, I think they had also like a little bit of frost this year in certain areas. So even in warmer regions, you have the risk of this kind of things going on. I think insect. I mean, above ground for sure. Like it just destroys everything. But also like is the mantis eggs are like in the bush usually, and they are late. They laid the eggs in autumn, late autumn. So I guess if they die during the winter, then you have problems in spring because they are
Ah,
very good predators of insects. So it's one of the best insecticides that you can use, in my opinion. Of course, if they die, then there is no one to police the fields.
that's right. There are good insects and bad insects.
Yeah, ladybugs, mantis, and I think there's a couple types of spiders that are okay as well. There's some spiders that are like quite bad. Yeah.
Bad because they're poisonous or bad for other
Well,
reasons?
they like the eggs like on the soft stems, and they just live like underneath, and they just like take the sap of the leaf.
They
There's
prevent the
like
new
one
growth
there's
of the buds.
yeah, it's like a I don't know, like how do you say a bloodsucker, one of
Oh,
these leeches,
a
like
leech.
leeches, but like 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter size type of thing. Is the red spiders? Yeah, it's not that good if it gets out of control. A little,
The red spiders,
yeah,
it's super tiny. It's not really
yeah,
spider. It looks kind of
it's
like a
a
spider, but
mite, I
really
think.
yeah, it's a type of pest that infest not only tea but also other crops too. They're yeah pretty bad.
Yeah, they love Saimidori. It's very tasty cultivar.
We do too.
So when like a lot of people go to visit tea farms, like us included, and other brand owners or people doing tea, various forms of tea tourism, like everyone has their rose-colored glasses on. Everyone's so happy to be there. It's like really like euphoric time. Like, could you like help give everyone a picture of the nitty gritty, like less romanticized version of tencha processing and what that looks like, and like if we remove sort of the romantic filters of like that type of tea processing, like where does it like suck to be a tea farmer at that time of year? Like how is like get a little better sense of like what the actual day to day looks like.
For the Tencha factory, I think that the worst part is for sure when they are operating it, and those ovens are like at 300 degrees each oven, and you are next to the oven. You know, like that's
Free
like
sauna.
just like a huge room, and just it's just like very sweaty people, like just next to very hot stuff. And it's just like, yeah, this is how we do it. Like a lot of sweat and physical effort and steaming too. So like the humidity is also like quite high in some parts of the factory sometimes. It's quite rough. Like, especially like unloading as well. We use harvesting bags, so it's like maybe 20 kilos per bag, sometimes more. And you have to unload that from the short track, put it into the container, and then you have to like kind of like be on the short track and just like pulling the bag and just letting the leaves into the container. Maybe every truck is like 300 kilos ish, sometimes 400 kilos of leaf that you are actively lifting above your head just to drop it into a container. So imagine doing that as your job for like many hours, and then having to go inside of the room. Maybe it's like 40 something degrees in there sometimes.
Oh my god.
And then even if you are in the separating room where the leaf and the stem is like gets dried in a different dryer, it's dusty, it's dust everywhere, everything is green or a shade of green. You are just like lifting 20 kilos at a time, all the time, all night, basically. A lot of effort.
It's into the night too, right? Like what are the operating hours?
Tencha factories usually like operate 24/7. It's like one of these. It's like a old style bread oven. Like once you turn them on, you just don't turn them off. You just keep going. Especially for tencha, it's like kind of like a little bit of a bottleneck. Usually, you always have some lift to go through. So those ovens are very difficult to heat up. Like it's just like a lot of calories that they take to heat them up. So they just keep going. And there is some farmers that they harvest during the day and they work like part time in the tencha factories in the evening. Sometimes if they have the time.
Mm.
So there is like a lot of that too,
So everyone's just working like 12-hour shifts or 8 hour
or
shifts,
more,
three teams,
or
or
more.
oh, or
No,
more. Oh,
there is
whoa.
people working 18, 20 hours per day. It's a hard job.
What is the management structure of a tencha factory? Do you have like special people specialized to operate the facility, or do the farmers themselves, are kind of the operators, or it's kind of like a mixture of the
Well,
both?
I think it's both. Of course, there is always people that understand better the process, and usually they work only on the tencha factory. But if you work for a company that owns a tencha factory, most likely you will be maybe harvesting all morning, and then the afternoon you will be in the factory. So they can do kind of like both things. The good thing, like in tencha, there is less. Of course, there is no rolling, so there is less decisions that you have to take, as in like, oh, it's still wet, more rolling, more pressure, like let's move it to the next machine. Like it's just steaming, make sure that it's cooked to the degree that you're looking for. In the oven, there is things that you can adjust. That's the two main things. And then just make sure at the end that everything is dry, everything is well packed, the stems are separated correctly. Of course, it is still going to be aracha, so it needs to go to refining factory.
Mm.
But those are the type of decisions. But there is farmers, for example, that they might, especially nowadays, they might have to send part of their production to a tencha factory and part of the production to another tencha factory. And it's like, yeah, I prefer how they work in this place, or I prefer how the tencha takes on that place. And that's, I think, like very, I don't know. I don't have like a very good insight into that part because I've never worked. I've seen tencha factories and I've been there, but of course you are not spending 6 hours with them during one entire season.
Mm.
So the small adjustments that they do, I don't have like a lot of insight on that.
Mm.
But there is definitely things going on. Like if it's a brick oven or it's like a more modern metal last cutting edge technology something. But generally in Kyoto is, at least in Wazuka, is almost everything is a little bit more brick combination, I would say.
Yeah, we've
Interesting.
heard that the infrared heating of these brick ovens really lend to that, like the taste of like Kyoto Prefecture.
Yeah, when I was visiting a research center in Shizuoka, they had like a machine. It was like 0% brick. It was just all stainless steel or a variation of stainless steel. And I was like, okay, I'm like, what are you doing with it? Like, oh, there's a machine that they want us to try, and it's just like they do the refraction, but with just like inside of the machine with like maybe some coating and stuff. And I was like,
Oh,
okay,
Interesting.
they
because the
can
the oven was
artificially
like,
create that infrared effect.
yeah, I don't know if like maybe they have like something inside or gas or like heavy oil or something like that, but like at a much higher temperature to achieve the same effect. I don't know, but it was considerably smaller. It was like half the size of a brick oven too. So I found that like very interesting
That's
because
cool.
those ovens are quite long sometimes.
That's very cool. Like tea industry is really a place in Japan that you can see like cutting edge modernism clash with traditional values and traditional technique. It's always interesting to see this kind of effect.
Yeah, I think especially because I work in Kyoto, so of course there is like very infrastructure that I don't know. There is some people that have a brick oven from like 80, 90, 100 years ago. It's like, oh my God. The factories are like legacy buildings in a way. And then you go on holidays to Shizuoka, like, I'm going to just say hi to this farmer. And you enter the factory. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Huge square building where you have a space in between the machines and you have machines stacked on top of machines and like, dude, this is so cool. They were like, yeah. Well, like, yeah, I come from Kyoto. Like, you should see our factory. It used to be an old lumberjack, like it's like just like refurbished a little bit. I was like, how do you do it? I was like, I don't know. Yeah, it's very interesting sometimes. There's some factories out there. It's like a dream when you compare to Kyoto. Like machinery is different. The machines are the same. The concept of the machines is the same, but you can very clearly see this comes from a different time and place. I think.
Yeah, we've seen some really old tea processing equipment in Yame that still retained surprisingly, similar details to a lot of these modern machines, but they're made out of wood, and it's really cool to see kind of like
Yeah.
the evolution or the lineage of all these tea processing equipment.
Mm.
At work, we have a twisting machine. The twisting rolling machine is the
And
how do you say, like foundry metal. It's not like a sheet of metal. It's like they pour it into a mold. Probably it's like 3 centimeter thick piece of chunk of metal
oh wow.
for the roller, and then the entire base is just wood. It's like maybe like 70 or 80-year-old machine, and it has like the flywheel at the side when they had these like belts on the roof usually to operate them. And then there's like an electric motor, and it's like always like, the electric motor came much later than the machine itself. They just like slapped it on the side, they screwed a switch on the side of the machine, but the machine used to be powered in a different way. So
Oh,
cool. They are so retro.
The
It's like
machine has
5 kilo.
outlived the power
Yeah, yeah,
mechanism.
yeah. Yeah, you can see like a huge wheel on the side. I was like, yeah, you just don't use that anymore. Like they put like an extra gear that you can see
oh,
is like a different material and an electric motor.
wow.
It's very cool.
So
And it's like a
practical.
5 kilo machine. It's super cute. It's a very nice size to just do tea for fun in a way. Like got, in summer or something, a small test lot or something.
Very cool.
Cool.
Someone should really do a documentary of the on the evolution of tea processing machine in Japan. That would be something very interesting.
I have a question, kind of a very nerdy question, and something I've never really fully understood is where and how fertilizer is applied. Because it's really important. We recently tasted some samples of like no fertilizer and fertilizer, same cultivar, same region, same processing, same everything. And like I was shocked at the difference in taste. And it seems to be really driving, especially the umami, but a lot of the complexity as well. Like, is you spray it on the bush, you spray it on the ground, you till it in the soil? Does it depend on if it's synthetic or natural or a mix in the way that you apply it? I have no like, and when and how often. I have no like conception of how this is actually done in reality.
Well, in I think independent of like if it's organic or synthetic or all those things, it's mainly like solid fertilizer, like pellets or like rice husks or like canola seed or like it's just a chunk, a solid chunk of something, and
Okay.
liquid version of it. And it is usually sprayed on the soil
Okay.
or like kind of like not dumping because like it's not like you're going with a bucket and like there you go. But I think it's spraying on the top. I think it's slightly different. I've never seen it for fertilizer, but I've seen it in coffee as in like for the leaf, like as a coating to protect the leaves, but not as a fertilizer. It's like more like against UV radiation or something like that. But usually liquid fertilizer is much more like, oh, this section needs help or something is going on, or super, I don't know, high quality competition grade tea because it's like super fast absorption for the plant. Like the
It can
pellets
absorb
usually is
in the
like
leaf, or does
no
it
no no
have
no.
to
You
be
spray it on the ground.
Wow.
The ones I have seen, like maybe there is some type of fertilizer that is sprayed on the leaf that I don't know
Yeah.
because we don't really do that much. Our main farmer likes to do that alone because he just puts some music and he's just like alone on the field, and sometimes you can see him singing and stuff. So he has it's like his solo time. It's one of the few things that you can do alone in the field and just like chill. The times I have done it is mostly pellets and it's like a slow release. Like you throw it and it just like slowly gets into the soil. Then most of the times it needs to be further break down by the microbes on the ground, and then the plant can take it and absorb it.
Yeah.
Especially for organic, I think that it takes like much longer, like the degradation and then being able to be assimilated by the plant. But I think the easiest way to understand the application is to start from the end of the season in autumn. You do the harvest in autumn. Forget about it. It's mostly bancha. You do your trimming. That's probably one of the most important things that you have to do. That
okay?
prepares the canopy for spring already. And then you just like throw a bunch of fertilizer for the winter just to support the tyrant plant from all the three harvests. If you do three harvests, you're just fertilizing, but in like thinking long term. Like this is mostly for winter starch creation, like for the roots. Then the next one is at least in our region. Like of course it's different region by region, but like early October, late November, you do that. Then we move all the way to beginning of March, mid March. Then it's just like you would just promote more quick absorbent fertilizers in a way. It's more like
Okay.
for growth of the plant, already growth of the leaf part. And we get those first shoots, and that's what we retrim middle of March. That just like takes, stresses the plant a little bit, promotes more branching. And then once you start to get the buds and the branches, the initial branches that you will actually harvest in spring, that's when you do the other application, like early April, I would say, something like that.
Okay.
That's again quick absorption because you want that fertilizer to be absorbed, and that's what's going to be on the flavor part of the application in a way. Here is where I've seen be used the liquid ones for your super high quality Gyokuros or tencha competition or sencha competition, whatever. They might choose like, okay, this field we use it for submitting to the competition, so they use this liquid super good fertilizer or something, and they apply it only in certain areas. Or if they see some part of the field struggling, they might supplement a little bit more.
Okay.
That's early April. Then you just move into harvest. You don't have time to do much more. There is shading to do as well. For example, if you're shading, then there is bancha harvest. Then there is trimming. So we are already like late May to June. Then you do summer fertilizer after the stress of the harvest, and it starts to get hot, and the plant is kind of like pushing to do a second growth around 50 days after the harvest, 50, 60 days after the harvest. That's when you have the summer one. So this is more like slow release, I would say. Support the plant after the stress, just give it more nutrients to compensate for the summer quality. And then you are already in autumn. So then you just harvest autumn and then you start the cycle again. To be fair, I've not done that much fertilization. And we actually have one field where, well, now soon to be 2 fields where we do nothing. We just do the trimming. When you trim the bush, that is also like kind of a fertilizer in a way. You just drop it into the floor and you just like let it naturally compost. So that's the only fertilizer we use in that field. So like the opportunities for me to learn these things, it's there, but like the actual like, okay, let's go fertilize. Can you show me what is the mix stuff? Like, oh yeah, we buy this, we put it there at this time. And then there is farmers where they do their own compost, they buy the ingredients and they do their own mixes, or they ask a company to, okay, make me this formulation. There is farmers that sell fertilizers to other farmers, and they like, I don't know, like quite fascinating. They have their own compost. They actually make compost for other farmers because they like the material or something.
Interesting. Do they do people always use like local materials to make these?
Not always.
Not
Not
always.
always. I think that there's fertilizers for different things. So I think if you are more like super high quality tea, like something that you will do for competitions or stuff like that, tends to be more like super high grade on the synthetic side, just because you are dosing just that element into the plant. And it's like, oh, maybe this is for the roots, or this is for the leaf, or this is for growth, or this is for whatever it might be.
Very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, like the plant needs different things at different periods of the year. So it's like, I don't know, taking vitamin supplements in humans, right? Some people need iron, some people need B12 if you're vegan, for example. There is like different things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same. And sometimes understanding it is very complicated. The rice farmers that are actually tea farmers, they might use the rice husks because they just have a lot of them. Why shouldn't you just use it? So there is like a lot of things that you can do. I guess if you are in an area where it's very easy for you to get fish bones, you can use that. Rapeseed oils, canola seed, like the how do you say? After pressing the canola seeds, there is also like a common material, I guess bones and stuff like that too, from ground bone meal is called in English, I think.
For calciums, probably.
Yeah, like seashells and stuff like that as well.
We've heard that. Oyster shells, I've heard, I think.
Yeah. Well, there is many things that you can do.
What are some of the physical signals of a tea plant that is undergoing some stress, like either from like the environment, the climate, or from shading? And what are the methods of farmers that usually kind of counter that kind of stress to help the plants?
So I think there is a few signs on the spot that you can see, but it's more like damage stress, like the shade is physically doing something to the plant. Like in the case of like doing direct contact, if you don't have it tight enough, there is a windstorm, it just hits the leaves, it might like rip the leaves off.
Yeah,
Or in summer, like the material gets like super hot and it's just like parching the leaf a little bit. So of course the plant will suffer for those reasons. Most of the stress that I've seen is like from the year before. Is a problem that you overdid something last year and the plant is recovering now.
Okay.
And one of the things is like the pear trees, right? So the tea plants are trees. The bottom side of the bush never has leaf. Like once you get like 7, 8, 9 leaves down, there is nothing. So the leaves just drop. So that natural, how do you say it? Defoliation, I think it's called in English. Like they just drop the leaves. If you overdo the shading, the leaves drop during the shading. If you overdo it, if you shade direct contact 30 days, you are potentially damaging the shoots on the top, but the mother leaves at the bottom, they're dropping.
because they
or they
think
will.
that they're way deeper than they are, like down the plant because it's shaded and they drop, or they just drop for because of stress, or
Yeah, it's like it creates a different timing on the plant, I would say. If you do very long shading, the natural loss of the leaves happens later. Then you enter summer with less leaf that you would usually have in the canopy. Then you shade again in summer and you have again less leaf in autumn. And then in autumn you need to have enough canopy for it to survive winter.
Mm.
So if it has to recover through autumn and winter, then the next spring you don't have enough leaf to actually like have the same amount of production, if that makes sense.
you're borrowing from the future basically because it's
Yeah.
the management. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like because you have harvested too much, which is also another problem, but like the shading might give you a boost in quality, of course, and also in yield in some cases, but that is at the expense of like draining the plant from energy that it will have used the next year because you are removing too many leaves. Then maybe you have, I don't know, let's say 30% less leaf in autumn. It survives through the winter, and then in the spring it doesn't have enough leaf to make like a push up. It has first to make a few leaves, gather energy, and then push up. So everything like gets too delayed.
The growth gets
Um,
stunted.
yeah, it's a little bit like that, especially summer as well. Like you get less leaf, then you are shading way too long, and it's hot and it's humid, and maybe there is pests. So you are losing leaf, and you have like a potential outbreak of something.
Because it's
Like
like a
maybe
hot, steamy room under the shade, right?
yeah, and then it's like it just like snowballs in a way. So yeah, especially in autumn, if you don't reach autumn with a healthy canopy, you have to trim, and then it just like you're shooting yourself on the foot a little bit. And also one thing that I don't know if it's gonna happen next year, but it worries me a little bit is like because there is so much tencha production going on right now. Usually you would maybe rotate. So like we are shading this field, then the next year we will rotate, we shade another field, and that one will naturally recover because it's more drained from energy. So let's let it recover. So now if you are shading both fields, like this year you might get like super high quality, a lot of yield, but next year I worry that we are gonna have like a drop in quality and in yield. Like because this year I think average was like 12 to 15% less yield than compared to last year, something like that.
Okay.
I think it was. Of course, they do the average for prefecture wide, so I don't know exactly what they're looking at. So if on top of that, every year we have less fields, and on top of that we are always shading and not having like a good rotation, I think it might be a little bit complicated.
Hmm.
So there is things that you can do, like the trimming helps, skipping summer helps, but there is a push to do double shading, spring and summer,
Hmm. Yeah, we've heard
a
that
little
that
bit.
really like it forces the plants to do like an Ironman or like a triple marathon a year. Like it's because
Yeah,
shaded cultivation's hard.
because all the starch is just drained from the plant. All the starch that they use to as a main. I don't have a degree in agronomy or anything like that, so just please take everything with a spoonful of salt. But if we imagine starch as the fuel, and then you are growing the plant, overshading it, and with 85% less sunlight, and like the plant, because of the shading, is losing leaf, like it's like everything is like stressing the plant. Then you give it like what, 3, 4, 5 weeks of rest, and then you just shade it for another 20 days. And then it's like 40 something degrees, and humidity is through the roof, and maybe there is some insects biting the plant. It's kind of rough for the plants, I think. And the energy reserves of the plant, they have a limit even with fertilization.
Yeah.
Then you have to put more fertilizer to compensate, and then the plants just get dependent in a way. They just get addicted to that rhythm. And cultivars don't have a taproot, so they have what they have on the surface. They don't drill too much down.
Do the natural fields that you guys have that you don't fertilize, do those grow taproots or deeper root structures?
No, they're cultivars. We have
Okay.
one that we are recovering right now. That is a Zairai. I'm super excited to harvest it next year, but we had to just like it was like 2 meters tall or something like that. It was abandoned for
Well, that's cool.
slightly over a year. So we're diving under the plants just to cut them, and now
Mm.
it's starting to grow back.
Two
All of that is
meters,
Zairai.
very tall for Japan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was abandoned. I've seen taller. I was not so bad, but it's yeah. We started the process in January, late December, and we just cut it down from 2 meters something down to like up to your knee, more or less, like 40 centimeters, 30 centimeters,
Oh,
and now
okay.
it's starting to push up. But this Zairai is like 100 something years old, taproot, so it's just like yeah, okay. I lost like 80% of my height, no problem.
The thing that you were talking about with the shading and losing more and more of the mature leaves after each successive one, is that the reason why we see longer shading times in Uji City? Like if you hear about producers in Gokusho or Shirakawa, they do one harvest a year, but I've noticed that the shading times are closer to like 40 days or 45, 50. But I've noticed from in Wazuka and Ujitawara, they're usually around 3 weeks. And is it the reason is that they're doing two harvests, so they literally can't. But the Uji producers can really push it because they're just doing one.
At least in Shirakawa, they mostly use roof, which is different because
They
the
use
plant
what?
has ventilation. They use roof style shading.
Like the Tana, elevated Tana, whatever.
They use the Tana system. The plant doesn't have pressure on top of it. You're not creating this greenhouse effect. You are just like have a way better airflow for the farmer. I mean, I love roof style because you are on the shade harvesting, which is always it's always it was always nice to be honest
Noticeably
sometimes.
cooler than standing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're already hand picking and you're having like super extra quality because of that, why bother harvesting in summer if you don't have to? I would say.
Okay.
But in
Okay.
Wazuka, there is many areas where we just cannot build roofs. Like we are in the mountains. Like some fields are you are gonna sleep. Like you're gonna sleep away with the harvesting machine. That's a given. Like sometimes there is some people that I work with that they wear like shoes with like the thing that you wear for the ice, like nails on the boots because it's
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
steep. And if you
Yeah.
Oh.
if you slip, if you fall with the harvesting machine, you are just gonna do like it's like when you go to the hairdresser and suddenly like you just have like a huge Nike symbol in the side of your head suddenly. So that's a problem that maybe in Shirakawa is not that bad. I mean, it's slope, but it's not like super steep. And if you have like a lot of wind currents, the roof makes like a sail effect. So it might rip the entire roof out if there is a windstorm. I mean, also the money investment, the metal pipes, the tension cables. Then you have to have these hooks to clip the shapes to the hook and then just have them slide up and down. Next year you have to switch them up. So it's like a lot of work. But for the plant, I think it's slightly better. But it will try to compete for light. The leaves grow thinner, they go wider, they go rounder as well. The usual shading talk flavor wise as well. But I think it's a slightly different mentality. In Ujitawara, for example, they have some mountain side as well, but their focus was more on Gyokuro already. So they already are using like a lot of roof as well. In Wazuka, I think it's more like, was more sencha side of things. So the big tencha push came a little bit later. So just have direct contact is much easier to pull in and out. You don't have to do the roofs, and you can just put those shades in another field next year and rotate like that. I guess. Yeah, Wazuka is pretty. I mean, it's pretty small if you size wise to Japan. But in Kyoto, we are the biggest surface. I think it's like 550, 560 hectares. I don't know if that's active hectares or like including abandoned fields, but it's quite a lot of area that is 90% on the mountains.
So, Pa, when we were walking the field in Wazuka, you were pointing at some of the bushes that have like white leaves in the field. And that was super interesting. And you told me about your experience of wanted to create a batch of tea with that specific type of a phenomena. Or genetic trace. And we have also learned that, with some extreme shading, you can actually turn the tea leaf white to a certain point. So, have you tried any of those like white leaf tea? And if so, like, how do they taste?
I have tried. So, like the one I showed you is a mutation, is a branch that I don't know something happened. The leaf is white, but only in spring, which is it's very interesting. Now it's green, and I lost it again. I don't know where it is anymore because Aki trimmed it, and I was like, no. But yeah, it's only white. It's like a creamy white color in
Yeah.
spring. Then the one that you are talking is like 100% shading. Like usually it's like 85%. Maybe if you do double layers, like 98. But that one is like as close to 100 as you can physically get, and that just like picks the chlorophyll. But then once there is just not enough sunlight, the shading is very extensive, 2 weeks plus.
Hmm.
The chlorophyll just like gets like just dumped. Just there is no more chlorophyll there. It
Just
just
gave up.
goes down a lot.
Yeah, it gives up.
Shading increases chlorophyll content, both for A and B, up to a certain point. And at some point, when it's too prolonged shading at 100% shading, it just goes down actually, and that's what makes it go white. I think there is a few other vegetables where they do like that. I think it's like a type of
Yeah,
rhubarb that they grow indoors. Yeah, something like that. It's kind of the same idea. I've tried both, like yellow white mutation cultivar. There's a guy that has 3 rows, quite interesting.
cool.
And the one that they do with this extreme shading get all the benefits from like more theanine, more amino acid content, all that jazz with like a very thin leaf. Then if they do the processing, it's quite nice. It's very sweet. It has something different. I don't know. I think like catechin level content and caffeine content also like gets like in a different balance that maybe we are not used to if your point of reference is sencha. So
Mm.
it's kind of sweet, but it's lacking something, in my opinion. I think I like sencha because the balance of sweetness and astringency is very nice. And it's kind of like suddenly, like for kabuse, it's like you have a little bit less catechin, a little bit more amino. So it's like more sweet, less astringent. But on the white tea, there is just a chunk of flavor that is just not there. It's like you have carved out like with a, I don't know, like a surgeon blade, this flavor out. It doesn't exist anymore. So it's like nice, but it lacks something, in my opinion. It looks funny, which is always cool. It's a very interesting tea. But I hope they don't do that too much to those plants because it looks brutal, like the type of
Yeah.
shading. It's kind of interesting.
Torture chamber for the plants.
I
Yeah.
think I read a research paper that they recommended to do it with cultivars that are already like high levels of amino acids, just to boost even more that brothiness into it.
Some
Interesting.
Nerino, 100% shaded Nerino would be so cool.
White
Just like
Nerino.
straight
It's
up
like
dashi.
maybe,
Gosh.
I don't know,
Yeah.
perhaps. But it's like when they talk about like high producing amino cultivars, it's like Saimidori, Tsuyuhikari, Satsuyu, all of those, which at the same time are not the strongest ones. Then you're like just shading 100% 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Oof, I don't know how that plant is going to do in a few years.
And turn that into a matcha, and it's like a white powder.
Yeah, right. It would be very interesting to. It would be very interesting to try. But also, I think is like the yield. Also, like, how do you say, when it's growing in those conditions, there is branches that they just die. Like,
No.
and then when like you are harvesting, I think it's less than half of what Kabuse field will produce, something like that. So Sencha will produce a certain amount. Kabuse will produce slightly less tea, but this one is like less than half of that, which is like a huge loss. And of course, when you are harvesting, you might be harvesting the survivor leaves, but also like picking up the half dead ones. So I think you also have like to be like very, very, very careful when you harvest and when removing the shade as well, because you can rip the leaves out. It's like very, very complicated to scale, probably, even if it's like super tasty. Might be a nice challenge for new, I don't know, shading technology like tunnel shading or something. It's not very common to do. Have you guys tried?
No.
No.
Very curious though.
We saw a kind of like a Japanese Kickstarter page of someone turning that they call it like hakuyo cha, right? into a
Yes.
matcha. And that happened like back in 2018. So we missed it.
So, Paul, you shared a pretty interesting sample with us, blind. You said you handed it to us. You said, "Give it a try. Let me know what you think." So we tasted it, and I've since revisited it after knowing what it was, and I've noticed that it has a really interesting effect in the aftertaste and in the after cup. Because in Chinese tea, like if you drink like an oolong, a roasted oolong or something, you finish it and then there's this wonderful roasted sweet fragrance that's left in the cup. And I had one this morning before this call, and it had the
Nice.
exact same flavor. It's this for anyone who's into like Taiwanese tea, it's just this hong shui kind of roasted note that you get, and I was getting it. It's the only time I've ever had it in matcha. And Sam and I were guessing what it was, and I think we were like half right. Could you share a little bit about this method, what it was, what it is, how it was made, and like where like it came from? I've never heard of this like niche of matcha and tencha refinement.
Well, that I think is okay. So that tencha is until after harvesting. So it's pretty much the same. Machine harvested, grown, shaded, blah, 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 blah. But the interesting part starts in the post processing part. So you would start your tencha processing, steaming, then butterfly nets, or like just removing moisture, then just dry a little bit more, peel the stems away, and you have the aracha, maybe refine a little bit more. And then from there, they move it to a hoiro. So the paper table, maybe you have seen it in hand rolling videos. So
Mm.
it's like a washi, like a thick washi Japanese paper. It's like a table that is probably a little bit lower than it should be for your back. And then there is like usually like a metal plate below the paper, and at the bottom of the table, maybe like a good 30 centimeters down, there is a gas burner nowadays. So the paper heats up to 80 to 100, up to 110, 120 maybe. If you really push for it in a good paper, and you can just in a way toast the tea. So those are usually the old method of like rolling sencha by hand before machinery. But of
Mm.
course, before sencha was kind of developed, like they had those kind of the same tools for tencha production. So all the drying for tencha, like of course there was no, the modern tencha oven didn't exist at the time. So it was done kind of in this way. So it's like kind of combining both things that I'm just realizing now it might be a little bit confusing. Are you guys following me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the initial part, just like the more modern part, steaming, then a brick oven or something, then the steaming, and then you get the aracha. And then he uses the hoiro. So he just puts it on, and in sencha, this would be the firing step, where you just like you're not roasting, but you're inducing fire to develop the flavor a little bit more. So he's doing that with a hoiro. And this guy in particular, he's from Miyazaki. I don't think it's a particular technique from there. I think it's more like probably how they did it in the old times. There is some people that still use some hoiros for finishing competition teas where, I mean, you have very low output, but some of these old hoiros are able to be used with coal as well. So all these
Charcoal
like the
roasted.
part that you were saying to me about the oolong, like charcoal roasted oolong part, I think it might come from there because some of these hoiros are like coal powered. It just kind of like induces a different something into the tencha, kind of like blending the old method with the new method, and just the finishing it off in that way, and just like slightly toasting in a way the tencha, but
Yeah.
just very carefully. And while he's doing that, he might be able to adjust, like, okay, we start from low temp to high temp, or like from high temp to low temp, and achieve different results. At the same time, he's with like the usual thing, like with chopsticks or with like tweezers, or stem, oh, this one is yellow, oh, this leaf is whatever, is too white,
Hand sorted.
this leaf. Yeah, and just refining, and then you have this different way of heating. And I guess like also the paper will have to induce part of the flavor as well over time as you roast batches and batches and batches. That paper kind of gets some interesting flavor, and then you just send it for grinding. Then it got to me. Then I put it probably 9 months in a not refrigerated environment at all, and then I give it to you. So it was probably not on optimum performance flavor wise, but I just like this kind of processes.
It
Like, yeah,
was
there is
super
this old
cool.
man.
Yeah.
He just there just with his hoiro, and it's his way of like forgetting about probably having to deal with something else.
Yeah.
He's just there with his tencha toasting away. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. It has a very interesting kind of like a chocolate, like dry cacao kind of flavor when we try
Mm.
it. It was very interesting tencha. I mean matcha that we have not had that kind of flavor profile from anywhere else before.
Yeah. I think this type of batches, because you are doing so little and you can just like, if you're using gas, you can just like regulate. If you do it in a closed oven, like you just put it, comes in, comes out, and you try before, afterwards. Okay, too much heat, too less heat, or during processing. But this extra polishing and refinement, and I don't know, gives it a different.
It's arguably what matcha closer to what matcha would have tasted like before the invention of these brick furnaces for the tencha ovens,
Yeah, I would
right?
say so. It's like it's the tools that they used
Yeah.
for sure is like back to the past a little bit. Of course, you don't have maybe the period of waiting that they might have had in the old times, because you go to the mountain, you pick by hand, you put it in a bamboo
Oh,
basket, you walk
mhm,
down. Of course, you might have had, I don't know, at that time maybe 200 people
mm,
just with hoiros and maybe manual steamers and stuff like that. So
crazy.
for sure, there was like a little bit of withering and a little bit of like more, in my
Yeah.
opinion, more interesting aromas probably being developed. And then you have this like fire coal probably at the time, or boot of some sort. There's your hoji techa something, I don't know. It's probably pretty interesting.
Just for our curious listeners, if you ever wanted to see a physical hoilo, there's one sitting in the Kambayashi Museum in Uji that you can check it out. It's very cool and well preserved.
So it's called Hoiro matcha. That's like what is it even commercially available?
I don't think it's called Hoiro matcha. Hoiro is just the table.
Name of the
Okay.
equipment.
I was introduced to this by a good friend of mine. I was like, just like, "Oh, okay, hey, this is very interesting. Let's try to pull the string." It just, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. This is just a special tencha I do from time to time. There is no special name. There is maybe not availability public forward. It's more of a thing that he does and he sells to a few people, and you can go there and help him out and stuff like that. But it's not like a thing anymore, unfortunately.
Shame.
But I think the guys from Yoshida in Uji, in the Ogura area, they have a Hoiro, a coal-powered Hoiro, and I think they use it. Not sure if for some of random tencha, but for sure for a hand-rolled gyokuro, I think. That is done in the Hoiro, but is actually with charcoal. So it's the old hand-rolled style, but on top of that it is with charcoal.
Okay.
But I
That's
don't
cool.
know the specific. I've never had the opportunity to try it, but we went there to help him build the bamboo roof at this spring, and I was just like, "Oh, do you have that hoiro with the famous charcoal hoiro thing?" Or like, "Yeah, do you want to see it?" Or like, they just show me. Like it's slightly different from the modern ones. So I was like, oh, that's just my jam. Give me old tools. Pretty interesting.
Do you think that's something like people could do? As more tea companies try to add value to the process, like milling it fresh, people are buying ishiusus. Could people in theory do this like light toasting to the tencha they buy before milling it? Or is there a really strong learning curve? Is it a very difficult thing to do?
I mean, I think it's probably both, but when you buy tencha, at least for probably the usual channels, that tencha has already been dried probably fired in the specific regional preference. So you are kind of like re-toasting on top of that, which might be interesting to do. Like, I mean, there is no one stopping you other than you can only see the result if you have a grinder to grind in your place. Kind of like with coffee, like the final step of production is just how do you say, on the consumer city in a
Mm.
way. Or matcha, everything is done at the production place. It's like not that the coffee from Kenya is being roasted in Kenya and then shipped to you. Maybe, but most of the time you
Oh,
just ship it raw and then you roast it.
mm.
It's for tencha it's already been like steamed, right, or probably fired in the yame style or not fired like in the uji style, for example. So you would be building on top of the work of someone else. So you can, as long as you have a stone to be able to grind it, or send it back to Japan for grinding. I don't know, maybe. Why not? I guess. But like maybe that's just like my hot take on this.
Okay.
It's just like sometimes it's just good to not have to leave your mark on the product and just let the product shine on its own. You know, like I think as Western people, we always have this impulse of like, I want to do something to this product because I don't know. As a coffee roaster, I can perfectly understand that. I want to be able to decide, like, I'm gonna roast it like this because this is how I think it should be done. I don't know. Like you have true specialists in this in Japan that they are like doing their own opinions about this. So you're like kind of like canceling them.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My English vocabulary in that word might be too strong, but sometimes it's just like, yeah, there is this guy in Japan. He has a hoiro. He hand toasts it in there. It's a cool dude. Like, please enjoy. You know, like, why should I just put one last stroke in a masterpiece? Like when the master has already done that, I would say. At the same time, go for it. Like, it's probably super fun. I've taken tencha from the factory and put it in a roaster and like make hoshi tencha. I just don't have a grinder to
Oh,
grind it when I did it like a year ago, I would say. But it's definitely very different from hojicha, for example. It's like a very different, I don't know, thermal curve, I would say.
interesting.
Because like the density and like the cell
Yeah.
walls are intact and
Yeah. Maybe
yeah.
it's just like my coffee roasting brain is like, oh, why is this not happening? Why is it like not following this? Like, yeah, because it's one thing is a bean, the other one is a leaf. Of course, it's gonna be roasting at different rates, and it just takes a little bit to switch up. But I think there is already some people roasting hojicha outside of Japan, where they just buy bancha or sencha or kukicha. And they are roasting. So the next natural step would be to buy black tea, Japanese oolong, even Taiwanese oolong, and roast it uh, closer to their final consumer. And maybe have this is the one that we get, and this is the same one, but we just give it a little flair of our own. Why not? So I can understand both. It's like my tea farmer heart and my, I don't know, roasting nerd, like kind of colliding together. It's a little bit difficult sometimes.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's two very different just like perspectives and approaches actually. Because I mean a lot of it's just intention, right? Like the tencha is like so close to a finished product other than the milling that like it is the finished work other than the milling and like then modifying it. It's like very different than green coffee, which is
Yeah,
like
it's
not the finished at all because you can't even like consume it in that form.
yeah. And the idea of roasting can really change the flavor profile of the tencha. It's almost like I would say can be perceived as adding milk, into matcha, right? It's you're changing a lot of the original flavor that had been
Yeah.
achieved with a lot of hard work.
Yeah, like there was a guy that I don't remember who, but we were talking about roasting. I was like, yeah, like if he also likes tea a lot, so he was like, the end cup of tea is the heart of the brewer in a way, right? Like they are brewing it, they are pouring their heart into it, and that gets
Mm.
into the cup. In coffee, the roaster is that person,
Mm.
not the barista, like, of course too, but like the one that is making like 90% of the decision is the roaster. So in coffee it's like the roaster's heart is the roaster, But when you're brewing sencha, it's like the brewer is so it's like kind of like that. So with matcha, it's kind of like the same, I think. Like it's kind of an act of intention to me, at least.
Interesting.
So
Sense.
very, very philosophical today.
So we invited David from Tizumi on the podcast, I don't know, about 4, 5, 6 episodes ago. And he said something that like really just changed my perspective on Zairai. And it had never occurred to me. You can basically have like different lineages of Zairai. And I think he was somewhere in Wazuka. And he was saying that one of the tea farmers was like, yeah, these bushes are all Uji Zairai. And like they're more umami in profile. And these are all Shizuoka Zairai, which are actually just the seeds of Yabukita, because back in the day, it was way cheaper to take someone else's Yabukita seeds than to actually like graft, create
Yeah.
new baby Yabukita plants. And that there's a lot more nuance to the Zairai conversation than what like most people generally talk about. Would love to learn like more about that, what you've seen from farmers, what you've tasted, and like if there's any like preservation effort. I know that like apples, for example, there was some big team, I think at Cornell, that went to like Kazakhstan, which is where I think apples were first cultivated. And they went and like collected tons of a genetic bank of all these different apple seeds. And a lot of them got replanted, I think somewhere in New York State. And there's this
Hmm.
huge like apple farm genetic bank of things so that they can pool like different traits from different bushes, etc., so that those didn't get extinct. And I know that I think David told us that 70% of, or maybe it was higher than that, maybe 90% of Wazuka was all Zairai in the 70s, and then it's just gotten ripped up.
I mean, before like the official registration was in 1953. That was Benihomare, Yabukita, and company. It was like 13 cultivars, something specific like that. So you can say like probably until the 20s, like everything was Zairai. Like everything was not Zairai, it was just tea. It was like tea was that. Like there was no concept of
Yeah,
what do you
cultivar.
mean preserve, like carrying the genetic material to the other to the next one? You know, like was you plant seeds, you grow tea, you have tea, and then you harvest. That's it. Like there was no this nuance of like oh, we can take this for this and propagate it and just make clones and have everything homogeneous in a way.
Mm.
And that just has many benefits for the farmers and consistency wise, I would say. But of course, it takes out a lot of diversity as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But like I'm checking very very fast here, like my notes on the Zairai. For example, like Asahi Zairai, Asagiri Zairai, Asatsuyu, excellent cultivar Zairai, Benitsukuba for black tea Zairai. It's like there is so many of them that
Yeah.
they have the Goko, super famous for Gyokuro, for example. Also, matcha is one of my favorite ones. Zairai. Like, what else? Some of them are seedlings from Yabukita, seedlings from Samidori, but like, we don't know the parent. Like, we know one half, we don't know the other half. So it just gets labeled as Yabukita and Zairai. So that's the fields that they were grown from seed. They are called misho usually. So it's like, I don't know, Yabukita Misho. So it's like seedlings from Yabukita. So we know that 50% is Yabukita. We don't know the other half. But probably the Yabukita dominant traits, they get carried to the seed. So there has some semblance.
For all these cultivars, actually mainly have two origins, right? Like they're either coming straight from Zairai and you propagate them, or they are some sort of intentional breed of different, traits of plants that they found it interesting. So, like, do people still constantly trying to discover new like Zairai and then replanting them as new cultivars? And also my question will be like, would it be more difficult nowadays because like you have less and less tie, right, and people are doing all these cultivar planting in all the regions?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, there is a lot of there is a lot
Sorry.
to uncover there. I think. No problem. Just I'm just want to one thing like Zairai is 100% from seed. You can
Yeah.
know one parent and not know the other parent. Then it's like I don't know seedling from if you know usually you know the flower component, the flower parent. You will know if it's a Yabukita, then it's a seedling from Yabukita. If you don't know the flower parent, then it's just Zairai, because then you just don't know anything about it.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then cultivar doesn't need to be intentional. Like, you're taking a Yabukita flower and Asatsuyu pollen and you're doing this. This is like the modern style of doing it. But there is still sometimes some cultivars that they just like, oh, we took this seed from this field. Is the field with Yabukita and next to it there is something else. We planted this and this plant came out and it looks gorgeous. So they just selected it like that. So it can be just like by lottery, like genetic lottery as well. So that's what they do on these seed banks that you, Ryan, were mentioning. They are actually not actual banks of seeds. I've never heard of that for tea bushes. I'm sure they have seeds on a seed bank for sure.
Okay.
But not like probably like super public. But what they do is like, at least in the few research centers I visited, they always have one field where they have the cultivars that didn't make the cut in a way. So for every cultivar that gets registered, there might be like 5,000-6,000 cultivars that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
And the pre-final selection might be around like 30. So from those 30, if they have one, okay, definitely we want to register this one. Sometimes they have two that they really like. And then let's say number 3, number 4, number 5, they're like, okay, we have done all the study. They are good, but not good enough. So let's plant them in I call them library fields. And they just have maybe like 3 or 4 plants with a tag of like, this is 36-2 or whatever.
Okay. Very similar
And
to
it's
the
like a field of Zairai, but where you have actually identified every single plant.
Okay.
But they just didn't make the cut. But maybe some are Yabukita parents, some of them are pure Zairai. Some of them is like, oh yeah, in this one we actually radiate like a bunch of atoms into it until the DNA broke down and a mutation happened and this thing came out. So there is 6 of those as well. Like it's pretty interesting.
Nowadays, all of the gardens and tea plantations are more homogenized because of all these cultivars. We are seeing less and less Zairai, and would it be difficult for people to find new, interesting tasting, new bushes, new Zairai nowadays?
Yeah. So for first, well, I don't know. I have seen this mentioned like first generation cultivar, second generation cultivar, and I kind of like follow that. But like first generation would be your Yabukitas, like first time registrations and stuff like that. They were mainly just picking Zairai, planting, see what works, see what doesn't work, and the fourth generation cultivars, so the current ones, are more like, no, we take this one, we take that one, and it's very intentional. So Zairai is almost never used nowadays. But there is cases here and there, like a farmer just makes seeds for fun and it might register a private cultivar, but it's pretty rare. But sometimes they say like, okay, we have this super tasty cultivar, but it's extremely weak against something. Let's say Saimidori, for example, not super resistant to cold. So they might take a Zairai from Saitama, which is a very harsh weather area. And those bushes are naturally like selected by their environment. So a lot of the cold-resistant cultivars in Japan come from that area. So they might say like, okay, let's bring a bunch of Zairai pollen and put it into the Samidori and see what works. So that's one way to do it. It's a little bit less common nowadays because you already have like a pool of cultivars that there is like information about that you can say like, oh, actually like this one is cold resistant, but the genetic trait is not dominant, so it might carry over, it might not carry over, but that one is also cold resistant and its trait is dominant. So there is a very high chance that the new plant will have some behavior like that as well. And with Zairai is like, okay, well, let's make 10,000, maybe something magical happens and we end with Narino version 2, you never know. So it's less predictable. There's definitely things with that, but not so much nowadays. Or if they do, like, is experimental and stuff. But I think it's important to recover a little bit more the Zairai. And I think from people from like us, like the nerdy cultivar people, like they are like, now there's like a push for You cannot understand cultivar as a consumer if you are not taught about Zairai in a way, right? It's like they go hand to hand. So there is gonna be with time maybe more people interested in Zairai, and then maybe abandoned Zairai fields will come back online, like the one we are recovering at work, for example, stuff like that. And then maybe there will be more incentive to talk about Zairai and have more just genetic diversity. Because I know I'm talking a lot about coffee in this podcast, but like coffee has a problem on its cultivars that the genetic diversity is super narrow. Like there is not a lot. The World Coffee Research Organization is one of the things that they try to do is like put out coffee cultivars out there. But one of the problems that they have is like I think there is like I don't remember, it's many years ago, but maybe like 1 to 3% diversity and variance. Like
Oh,
the
Wow.
plant is 97% the same. Something, it might be like 95, I don't know, but it's like something brutal. It's like there is only 1% of like variation. Exactly. And then with tree, if we lose all this regionality, genetic per genetic regionality in the plant, in the future we might have a little bit of trouble.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
Cavendish banana too. And in coffee, what is it?
Yeah,
Coffee rust. That virus is like super like devastating, I've heard.
yeah, and especially because there is one key thing that you just cannot get when making cultivars. You don't have a taproot. You just don't. You are just missing a physical part of the plant. Like
Hmm.
all
Wait,
that drill root
why
is
don't you
not
have a
there.
taproot?
Because you are taking a branch, you are just cutting.
Uh-huh.
So it makes, I think it's called in English radicels. So it's like side roots, but there is no
Yeah.
one tap root, like one, I don't know how to say, like a mother root that just drills
Yeah.
down. It doesn't grow like that. It only grows when you have a seed, as far
Interesting.
as my knowledge goes. So that's why many cultivars have like rooting problems at the beginning when they are young, is because the radicels is like a very weak system. Then
Interesting.
once they are on the field, they settle and like then they can get around.
That's
But you are losing access to deeper soil,
Yeah.
and probably the soil there has more extra moisture, so they are more resistant to drought. They just get access to different minerality from the soil as well. So like there is like a lot of things. So that's also why the Zairais from different places have more expression, in my opinion.
I know in Taiwan, erosion is a huge problem, and I'm sure in Wazuka too. That with because I know that some of the really steep slopes, I think Dayuling in particular, the highest, it's like 2,000 plus meters in Taiwan. It's an environmental disaster because it's just monocrop of Chinchin oolong cultivars, and they get a big storm. There's a big, and then like it's causing all these
Landslide.
landslides because yeah, I never made the connection. So I guess there's no tap roots and there's
Yeah,
no
because
biodiversity.
the plants are literally sitting on the soil.
Yeah.
They are going, I don't know. I mean, they are going deep. What, like 15 centimeters deep, 20 centimeters deep?
Whoa, that's way less than I would have guessed.
Like
Okay.
it's not a lot, I would say, and especially if you're in a slope, there is literally only like the upper side of the slope where the plant can really grip. The other one is just there. It's just like sitting there. And if you over fertilize the roots, there's no reason for the roots to go down. There's a reason for the roots to go up, right? In fact, there is some
Wow.
cultivars that in nursery stage they have to make like wind breakers because the roots just like sit flat on the soil. Like it's like you just place the plant. You don't plant the plant. You just place it. And
Wow.
it's like the roots just don't know where to go. And it's like, are we sure this cultivar it should be registered or something? We're like, yeah, it's actually very tasty. And actually, all the tasty cultivars have some root problem. I don't know why. It's like
Interesting.
you either have like a very good flavor or a very good root system. It's like there's no in between. It's very funny.
Just a idea, because like I know in like grape, they will graft some cultivars on top of like very old like root system from a different types of grape. I wonder if like people would do that for tea when you have the Zairai root and then you graft on top of it.
They do that with coffee sometimes.
Yeah.
where they would plant Robusta and then they will
Hmm.
just chop it down and plant an Arabica on top of it, which is like very funny. On tea, I've seen a paper. They were trying to, for cultivars like they don't do good root, to just do grafting, but I never seen anything. Yeah, definitely this one is grafted, because then it means that you can only propagate from that graft.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like Yabuquita is a tree. The original Yabuquita is a tree with its taproot. You are just taking cuttings of that tree. If you graft, you have a tree that is something else and the grafted part. So, like, yeah, you are using the roots of another plant, but when you do the cuttings, you will still have the roots of the grafted part, not the one that you're using now. So you're not taking benefit from the better root system of the other plant, if that makes sense, when you propagate.
Or you can just like cut all of the branches of the original plant and then graft the cultivar on top of it.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, but like what I meant, it's like it's difficult for me to explain. But like if you graft, at least as far as my understanding goes, you want to take, like you would have to have a Zairai field and graft only Yabuquita,
yeah.
but you would not be able to take cuttings of that cultivar grafted, because then you will lose the good root. It will not translate to the children. Yeah, it's getting too complicated. I lost you guys. I'm sorry. It's
It's all right.
probably makes more sense in my head, but yeah, I think it's definitely a thing that you can do. I don't see much reason to do it.
Yeah, I would say part of the difficulty is because you graft a cultivar on top of a Zairai, but you won't necessarily be able to prevent the Zairai from shooting out its own branches. So you might end up having a
Yeah, that's
mixture of
one
Zairai and cultivar in the field, which can be
that's one
problematic.
thing, and then every root from every tree will be different too, because it's Zairai.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That too. The root
Because
system.
in wine they know that is this variety, and then they graft another variety, so they know
Yeah.
all the roots are this type and all the top plant is this type. But with Zairai, it's just gonna be every root is the different one, so you end up in the same place, but
Yeah.
like the leaf part at least it will behave something similar. I think it's interesting, but I've never seen it in action. Only a couple papers here and there. Yeah, sorry, it was a very convoluted explanation.
Do you know when they like rip up these old Zairai fields? Like I know like the Okonoyama tea garden from Horishi Shimeya, where the mother tree I think was like 400 years old. But I think that like little plot of land has been cultivated for like half a millennium. And I'm assuming that's not all Zairai anymore. And when they ripped that up and planted cultivars, did one of like when a garden is that important, does like the prefectural research institute come in and like save cuttings or seeds or like for something that's been cultivated for so long, and you have that like little lineage of Zairai that's
Yeah,
so important where these cultivars are coming from, does that get saved or is it
I
just
I hope I hope it does. I hope it does, but I don't know, to be honest. I know that, for example, Asahi and all of this was farmers that they take from Zairai, like whatever they do, their own cultivars, maybe for fun, maybe because they were just interested in developing something new. And then they were like, "Hey, this plant looks cool. I take all these notes. Here it is. Please run tests and tell me if it could become a thing in a way." Or maybe they pass out and then someone just transfers those seedlings to the closer research center and they take care of them. So I think usually the cultivars from Kyoto, when they don't get registered or before they get registered, they have Kyo, Ken, and then a number. So
okay?
Kyoto, Ken is prefecture, Kyoto Ken number 126 or whatever. So Asahi and Uji Hikari and all of those, they have their own Kyoken number in a way. But there is a few of them that is like Koyama. Koyama 69, I think, is like Koyama number whatever. It's Koyama is the farmer that made the seedling, but
Mm.
he just transferred it or someone transferred it to the research center. So in the past, they have moved that material when they brought seeds from Sri Lanka or like India and stuff. They moved that material to the research centers.
Interesting.
In the present time, if they recover from important fields, I hope they do, but I don't know.
because it's
Yeah.
horrifying thought because like all these old tea farmers with all this, because we were talking with someone in Gokusho and I think they were saying that everything was Zairai until like the 70s or 80s, and
Yeah,
like this is like primo cultivated for who knows how long, and it's family by family as everyone's moved to cultivars. Like all of this genetic diversity, you really hope it didn't get lost.
yeah. And especially like, I mean, of course it's your land. You can do whatever you want with it. But like some of these like 10, 12, 15 generation fields, especially I think in the case of Chichimeyen, he is one of the 7 famous fields of Uji. Like
Yeah.
was this like Ashikaga? I think it was a Ashikaga warlord. He said like, yeah, these 7 fields, top crop. Like there is like maybe even a deeper link to the past that should be like recognized as maybe, I don't know, like geographical denomination of sorts. Just like we have like intangible human heritage, I don't know,
Yeah.
like intangible or tangible Japanese site or something. So yeah, it makes me a little bit sad when I hear about these cases. But I hope they recover some of the material when they do, for sure.
Yeah, I guess people at the time really viewed, tea plant or cultivar a very different way than we do nowadays. They don't necessarily see the
Mm,
value of like all these Zairai. You have a
mm.
very top selling new cultivars that can be sold for higher price and it tastes good, and why not? Like, because similar things happened in China too. Like in Wuyishan, it's one of the most pristine oolong production region. And back in I think the 60s or the 70s, identical thing happened. Like they introduced all these like Shuixian and Rogui cultivar, and they just like destroy all of the local bushes. They call it Caicha. It's the Chinese Zairai,
Yeah.
name for Zairai, and they plant all of these cultivars. And now they are trying to like rediscover all of these old, local tea plants that kind of
Yeah,
survived from their
that's
years.
the thing. Like, also sometimes they are not the farmers themselves choosing the cultivars. They just like get like by, I don't know, pressure market market pressure,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like sometimes it's like a researcher from wherever is like, yeah, this cultivar good for this area. You're doing matcha, is a cultivar suited for matcha, and then what are you going to do? Is a
yeah,
specialist giving you like high level advice? Of course you're going to plant it, but then maybe 10 years later you it's like, actually this cultivar was super weak against this thing, and it just ravaged the entire region for whatever. That's what happened in Kagoshima with Yutaka Midori. Like,
uh,
yeah, this cultivar super good. 8 years later, everyone was on the red because it didn't taste well. They had to figure something out. Yeah. So there's
Interesting.
like a lot of like drama, and then everyone went against these scientists. Like, oh, hey, what do we do? Because it's the second most grown cultivar, and only in Kagoshima. So it was like a huge loss for some farmers until they developed a way to process it and make it tasty.
interesting, interesting.
But it's like
Tasty.
maybe patching the cultivar genetic material. I don't know. Is like a little bit like that. And for example, let's say that this matcha super boom lasts for 20 years. So people that are starting to replant now, they will get certain recommendations of like, oh, maybe you have to plant Asahi if you want to do a hand-picked line of matcha. And then whatever, it's like maybe they are not able to say like, oh, but actually I just want to have Insatsu 131 and do oolong. But the market is pressuring you to have certain cultivars, not certain other things. And then you just have like a loss of diversity on top of that,
Yeah.
I would say.
That's a great point because identical thing happened in Wuyi too. Like people actually still plant some of the local cultivars, but the problem is like all these big companies or buyers, they would just not buy that cultivar. Like you
Yeah.
end up planting some things
Yeah.
that just won't be sold. Like no one's buying them, so you kind of have to switch to this like more popular cultivar in order to survive. Really.
Yeah, it's just a label. It's just a label problem. Like, and I
Yeah.
saw this in a lot of like people that are starting, not just matcha companies, but tea companies in general. It's like, oh, is it organic? No, it's natural. So it's kind of organic. Can I label it as organic? Like, no, it's natural. Are you looking for tea that has an interesting history, or are you just like looking for a term to put on your website? Let's say, I don't know, random thing, Asagiri matcha. What's that? Do you have Asahi? Do you have Okumidori? No, okay, bye. It's like,
Whoa.
okay, have you tried it? Like, it's like they are just like hunting for these terms.
Yeah.
And that's not good, because then the consumers of that people, they will always see like with this single cultivar push, there is always the same 5 to 7 cultivar names, and then organic yes, organic no kind of relationship, or blend. And it's like they're already like influencing a lot, and it's like there is 170, 160 registered cultivars in Japan. Like, enjoy. Once would be more suited for one thing, one for the other. Is just enjoy the tea tapestry of genetic diversity, not like on what you want to put on your label because it's what you have learned from Instagram that is good. Like, I don't know. I just have like a lot of like very strong opinions about this. About
I love it.
I mean, ultimately it's an access problem and it's an awareness problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, if you sell leaf to a factory, you are not processing your own leaf. They might you just don't have the choice to, okay, what is this leaf going to be used for? And if you work in a cooperative, they might actually enforce you like, no, you have to use this fertilizer. Even if you don't want to apply fertilizer, you have to apply this one. And it has to be this cultivar, because everyone has to be the same in certain products of the cooperative. So they might actually like also like force you to do certain things. Like, I know of a few farmers that have this problem. And like, yeah, in my day job, I have to do this. I have to do these cultivars. I have to do it this way. But then they are like doing like super crazy roasted black tea and kamairicha and like stuff like that on their free time.
It's like a little
That
rebellion.
like the pressure goes from many places, and the farmers are there just like holding to like the last chain. It's like how to it like that. Yeah, sorry,
Interesting.
I just had to say it.
Let it out, Pa. Let it out.
I mean, there's so much innovation going on. Just a matter of finding it and learning about it and giving everyone the context to appreciate it. So I'd love to taste all the genetic diversity. I just don't know where to buy it. Like, even just as purely as a consumer, or like what it is. Because like even some of the stuff on your blog, some of the cultivars I've never seen commercially available. And like, where are they going? Like, that's an interesting question. Like, if it does go to like black tea or goes into oolong or goes into some senchas, do they just where does that detail get lost on the way to the consumer? Like with all of these weird, interesting new cultivars, like does it get lost? I guess at the cooperative level, at the blending level, brand level.
Maybe the production is too low.
Yeah, exactly. Like most of the farms, they just don't sell direct to consumer. It's a thing that has traditionally not happened. It's like a very recent thing. There is a few farmers here and there that are like really pushing for it, and they have like weird names. Like even me, sometimes I read like, I know that this cultivar exists. It's the first time I've ever seen it, and the farmer itself was like, I've never seen it as a single cultivar. I've seen people that have it, but it gets into a co-op product and it just gets blended, and it just gets lost to the consumer. Or sometimes it's just like contract sales to a blending house or whatever, and then they just like loses the transparency there. In Japan, there is this tradition of like the farmer grows, the blender blends, the wholesaler packs, and the retailer sells. Like everyone does its job, and it's a chain, and you just follow the chain and keep going. And now it's kind of like breaking a little bit more and more, but not all the farms have the energy, the knowledge to do it. Maybe they do it in Japanese, but like they don't have the ability to do it in other language channels. For example, there was a guy in Shizuoka. He studied for 2 years in the States, in agronomy school or something like that. So he speaks a little bit of English. Even so, his website is kind of like half English, half Japanese. But he doesn't sell abroad. He doesn't ship abroad because just he doesn't really understand fully like export regulations and stuff like that. So there is like always like a missing piece. And for most farmers, it's always like they only speak Japanese. They have a phone number. If you know them, you can buy from them. They are not listed anywhere. They just have maybe their shop. They sell some shincha. They might be able to tell you what cultivar goes in what, but everything else they move it through the auction because they might get potentially less money, but it's like kind of like more safe route. I think as we go, maybe farmers will start to do direct to consumer, maybe 10-20% of their production, and then maybe see how things go, and then maybe year by year increase. But it's more like relatively young farmers, or like now that some farmers are transitioning, if they have like inheritance going on and stuff like that, the young people might just push for it because they're social media knowledge, internet knowledge. They can do a simple website on their own, or they have a friend that makes website because that's one of the interesting jobs out there that most people do. It's creating a new foundation for direct to consumer sales in farming in general. Like, it's very interesting. If you follow this couple months, I've been like super disconnected from the Instagram kind of things, but like the presence of farmers, of Japanese farmers in Instagram selling their products is insane.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like peach farmers, grape farmers, strawberry farmers, onion
Oh.
farmers. Everyone is there. I think that's how they are discovering like the direct to consumer on the internal market.
Mm.
So once there is a little bit more of like a better translation tools, maybe, or someone from the government creates a platform to make even easier, like exports, maybe we will see a little bit more single origin, single farm, single cultivar, these kind of terms popping up a little bit more. And then from there, it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs.
Last year, you wrote about like this very interesting article about the whole matcha shortage situation. Can you share any updates on how it is progressing and how it is changing the industry and what the government and tea farmers are doing right now in response? Do you see more people switching into matcha production, tencha production, or shifting cultivars that being grown in their field? Because I know that there are a lot of traditional like sencha or gyokuro farmers start changing to farming tencha.
So this kind of like is a good question because it kind of connects to what we have been talking through the podcast and especially through the last one. But when I brought that article, it was when I think just after Koyama put the now famous Instagram post like, "Oh, shortage here, problems. We're cutting limiting amounts and stuff like that." And everyone was like a little bit like, "Oh, actually, it's happening." So I think I remember writing that article in maybe like 2 hours with like a very like hot-headed like thing, and then having to edit and edit and edit and edit. So yeah, there was like a lot of like feelings on that one, I think. But I think it stands quite well. I would add like, I didn't know, like, let's imagine that Wazuka always shades 50% of their fields. That is including kabuse, gyokuro, matcha, stuff like that, right? I think it has definitely increased. I've seen more people shading. I've also seen many more bundles of shading cloth before it's cut and prepared for the field on K-Toras, just zipping in town as well. We're like, oh, this guy bought 2 bundles of shading. This guy bought 1 bundle of shading.
Ah,
You can see like who is gonna shade more that year or has to renew some shades. If it's a significant increase, nothing extremely crazy, but definitely has gone up. And one of the interesting parts is that everyone had to kind of like rush for the tencha factory because, of course, they are already like kind of at capacity. The Wazuka has a lot of output for tencha, but of course, like nothing compared to other prefectures. So the factories are already small. There is not a lot of storage area. They were already like kind of like at capacity size wise. So how do you get more people to work the factory if it's a factory that runs for 20 hours or something like that? And they kind of like refine during 4 hours and then the next morning they start again. So there's been a lot of longer waiting times for leaf to be processed because you can just you just have one speed. Like, of course, you can make it happen slightly faster, but not significantly faster without having some quality problems, perhaps.
So you have withered matcha
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean,
accidentally.
accidentally, yeah, which might be an interesting flavor thing, but at
Mm.
the same time, like, everyone is hungry for buying tencha. Like the price is like 3-4 times higher than last spring. So everyone was like, okay, we have to buy some tencha. What's going to be the price? The farmers didn't know. Then the auction opened and then just like the price just through the roof. As you progress through the harvest season, of course, you get to the main part of the harvest, and that's just the bottleneck. It's just like, okay, we have to harvest this field, but you have to actually call the tencha factory before, like, hey, can we bring leaf today? Are you full? Maybe we can take 300-400 kilos. Don't bring the 600 that you would maybe brought usually, which means that the next 200 kilos are harvested maybe one day later, which means bigger leaf, which means maybe less quality. So it's like the problem we ran out. I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, because it rained, it delays things one day and a half. Then you have like certain loss of quality. On top of that, you cannot bring that to the tencha factory. Maybe you are 3 days late.
Yeah.
So it's like complicated. And there is some farmers, which very smart of them. They have been sending half tencha in one side, half tencha on the other side. And then they just like pick and choose the factory that they like the most. And they try to bring more and more to that factory and use the other one as a supplement factory,
Like
which
hedging.
is very, very, very smart. Yeah. It's like, okay, so this is my leaf. They don't have a say on how the tencha is going to be processed if you bring it to certain factories, right? They're just gonna process it the way that they do, and you get a product at the end, and then you try it. It was like, well, this is not what I imagined, but this is what I got. But if you have different factories, then you try and you're like, okay, well, let's try to make continue our relationship with this person, or a little bit more with that one. At the same time, if you have to work with a different tencha factory, they have their own old customers, like very long established relationships with other farmers. So most of the times they can just maybe welcome one more farmer, but maybe not 3 more farmers, because they just don't have the containers for it. They maybe don't have the space to store that much tencha. They don't have like many things. So it's a huge bottleneck. If you sell to the auction, once it gets to the auction, then the price is super high. Some lots made it slightly later to the auction. So some farmers got like a big jump at the beginning. And luckily, at least the price maintained very high through the season. So even though they had to harvest a few days later, price-wise, probably okay for them, I would say. So that's complicated. And then comes the problem with like, okay, now I got my tencha after dealing with logistics on the tencha factory. Who is going to grind it?
Yeah.
Because the grinding facilities are like, yeah, we have 50 stones free to sell grinding as a service, right? But now they are at capacity. It's like, yeah, we cannot take more customers. We are shedding customers like, hey, 1 year before when everything exploded, like, hey, from March, we can probably still work with you for the industrial grinding, but we cannot do stone grinding for you anymore because we need the stones for ourselves. I think they are all of them, all these factories, they try to like connect you with someone else that might offer those services. But I've seen some tencha being shipped quite far away to be ground and then shipped back to the farm. When before, maybe you would just drive to the next town where there is a grinding facility and you would just get it some days or weeks later, ground as powder. Usually those facilities would also offer packing. So now for the farmers, they have to search for a tencha factory, they have to search for a new grinding facility. And if the new people that they are working for, they don't have the format of packaging that they use, or they don't offer packaging as a service. I think this is a thing that I discovered probably this week, is like how painful it is to pack matcha.
We've heard.
It doesn't
We've
matter.
seen.
Bags or tins is such a complicated process. If you're a small farm and you do like, again, single origin, single cultivar things, it's not like you can use the very automated machinery because you have to clean between batches. So there is like a loss of material there that you maybe cannot or don't want to do. If you have kilos and kilos and kilos, you can just use machinery. but there is like a lot of manual packing going on still. That is something I've really never got insight into, and recently I've learned it the hard way, I would say. And that just means the lead times are insane. Like for the tencha now, we have moved past through that because the season is over. Now we move into summer tea, which some farmers have already started in Wazuka. So the tencha factories are going to be again super busy. But then we have the grinding bottleneck. Maybe you will get your tea in 2 months because you have to wait for grinders to be available. And that means that your product will reach the market September, November. That's very late. Like, it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, I guess, depending on what's your strategy. But the big blending houses are starting to release now. I think I've seen a couple super nice spring products coming out now, and they have the capacity for it. But the usual farmers, I know that they do good matcha, but they are not super well known, and it's not blended from houses or anything like that. It's like, yep, we'll have when we will have stock. September, maybe October. We don't know.
Literally because they can't grind it.
Or packing takes forever. Yeah, we're
Packing.
actually waiting for people to pack it. Like we can sell you a couple bags to you as a retail customer, but if it's a wholesale that needs 70 kilos of matcha, because everyone is trying to just get as much matcha as possible, especially big accounts, they are just going for door by door, almost like, okay, I need 200 kilos. Can you sell me 50? Yes. No. Okay. Can you sell me 100? Yes. No. And they just make decisions like this in a way. Like very simplified, right? But everyone is like kind of really, really struggling on the sourcing part, which puts more pressure on like, hey, we need to pack fast and just move product, because some of these farms farming is not super profitable. If you want to have a good product next year, you have to start making good trimming, good fertilization. In some cases, if you work that way, end of summer, beginning of autumn, if you don't have the cash flow to buy big amounts of the tools or fertilizers or materials that you need for next year, you are like, your hands are tied. You might not have enough cash flow to operate well for the next year, because all your profit will come very late in the year.
Yeah.
Which means more debt to more farms that are already kind of in a situation.
The winners win and the losers lose. Extra hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Both
like
sides.
farming is almost no safety net. Like the government is there for weather damage and stuff like that, but I've not seen. I have never had to resort to those kind of things, and everything is in a very particular speech, and this helps and subsidies and stuff like that. Maybe I'm lacking a huge part of knowledge on that, so I'm sorry about that. But it's a very tricky situation. On top of that, well, we talked at the beginning of the episode, long shading, maybe you don't do good rotation, so maybe next year it's gonna be worse yield than this year. But this year we had low yield, super high quality, but maybe next year is going to be medium quality, even lower yield. Kind of like brace yourself, because this year has been confusing for everyone and a lot of adjustments, but the plans, I don't know how they will take it. And the infrastructure problem is going to still be there. 90% of the farms or wholesalers, they are also going through a rough patch, where they might have the cash flow to like buy from farms that they have not worked from, but they are also like paying like insane amounts of money for the same amount of material that they were buying last year.
Yeah.
Now, if that is going to be covered by consumers and them, or only from the consumers, the matcha price will go up. If your daily latte, instead of being $7, is like $12, how many people are going to continue consumption, or move to another drink, or move to it's like, it's
It's a
so
fragile
complicated.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, super fragile.
Yeah.
I feel like the price is gonna be there anyways, despite the shortage.
Yeah. Because I think we're gonna be seeing spring prices in summer leaf tea, and I don't know yet because we have not started. We are getting some people are getting some tension now, but like It's going to be interesting to see the shift in summer because that is now everyone loves, right? Everyone loves spring matcha and super high grade matcha, but like for latte, everything that runs to for export is probably part of summer or only summer tea. So that is maybe what is going to affect your average consumer. Someone that is already a little bit more into matcha and they are sourcing a little bit more carefully where do they buy from stuff. It's more like the spring side, but like all your coffee shops for latte, baking ingredients and stuff like that, the heat is going to come now in summer, in my opinion. Which means that they will get the tea maybe in December, which that's like super crazy. But maybe industrial grinding is not gonna be a problem, but it's gonna be interesting to see. So overall, I think that maybe with a few details, that post still holds up relatively well, I would say.
Yeah, still very
I reread it
relevant.
recently. Yeah, it rings very true from everything we're hearing.
Yeah.
I read it too when we were organizing the podcast because I was like, oof, what did I say like 6 months ago? I don't remember. I just like sent it to you, then I published it, and then I just forgot about it. I was like, oof, oof.
I think it's one of the best, or if not the best, article on the matcha shortage that's out there. I think I saw in your newsletter it's getting a lot of exposure, over 1,000 views.
Yeah, it's by far the most read article on the website. Which I mean, it's not like there's thousands of people visiting my blog every day, but like
Yeah, but the
it's
people who do are like really like either own tea businesses or like really deep down a rabbit hole.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, it's ranking very high, but like it made me consider like, oh, should we do like a part two, or like what? Or like then it's like, oof, I'm just gonna be like very hot headed again. I don't just want to talk about matcha because certain of the similar problems exist for the sencha part and for other things. And to be honest, my life from March until literally like last week was non-existent with the spring harvest, university, and like post-harvest, and then pre-summer harvest and stuff like that. So now it's like when I'm like turning the wheels, so like okay, now we can write another article, maybe a
We
how do you say a post-mortem of the spring harvest, something
Oh,
like that,
postmortem. That'd be
something
cool.
like that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So like
Well, we highly recommend our listeners to read that article. It's still super relevant nowadays.
no, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pa, for coming on. It's a great note to end on. And if dear listeners, if you enjoyed this, please consider sharing it with a friend, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Pa.
Thank you.
See you in the future.
See you.
See you.